to the P stands for podcast.
It's the spooky Halloween episode. Wow, I hope everyone hated that.
We've got some real spooky stories to tell this time.
And some pretty regular stories, but just they're kind of weird.
Brushes with the supernatural, you could say.
Sounds much fancier.
We also have a guest with us today. This is Josh.
Hello, I'm
That's
Josh.
Yes, I was like, please state your name. And he did. I didn't have to prompt him or anything.
Yeah. So, Josh has some stories, but we're going to get to Josh's stories later.
Because they're going to escalate the spooks.
Yeah,
on the
Josh
spook
says
scale, his are the highest.
maximum
Ours are
spook.
Yeah, maximum spook. Ours are pretty moderate, mild spook. It's like salsa.
Well,
Would you like a mild spook, a medium spook, or a spicy spook?
I think I'm honored to be at the spicy level of scary stories. You guys made this podcast, which is great, by the way. I'm a longtime listener of your 2 episodes, and when you guys reached out to me and said that you wanted me to join you for a podcast, of course my natural thought was they want me for their spooky Halloween spectacular.
I didn't know you had any scary stories, though. Like, we just asked a bunch of our friends, and I mean, like, apologies if you didn't give us a story, or we just, like, have omitted the story for the sake of, like, length, and that's just, I don't know, we just picked some stories of our own, because it's easier, but, I don't know, Kaylee said that Josh had some really scary stories, and then, like, you mentioned a little bit of it, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so scared, but I want to hear them so badly.
Sure. I can be a spooky, shady type individual, so I love Halloween, so it's perfect. It's perfect.
Well, it is gonna be released prime time for Halloween, so when it's out, you'll know, because it'll be out, because that's how podcasts work, is we're recording it.
You can't hear this unless it's
not
out.
Halloween yet, but you won't get to hear it until we put it out, and I keep forgetting that.
Am I your first guest, or have you had others?
No.
You will be our first guest in the order the
Technically.
podcasts are being released.
But we've already recorded 2 podcasts with guests so far.
Okay, well, I'm gonna take it, so.
But you will be the first guest
That other people
in the order that people will
hear.
listen.
Deal.
I said listening.
Yeah.
In the order in which people will listen to the podcast, Josh is the first. So congratulations.
Thank you. I'll wear it with pride.
So
Okay,
I
should we
guess
just
we can
jump
just
right in?
start with some spooky stories.
Oh, we are going to go least spook to most spook. So if you're listening to the first part and then it gets too spooky, then you can stop because it's just going to get spookier.
If you're sensitive to spooks like me, then this first part is going to be pretty good, pretty vanilla, because I do not like scary stories very much. I think they're entertaining, but then like later when I'm going to bed, I get like really scared and really paranoid. So
It is currently almost 8 p.m. as we record this, and so when we go to bed tonight, it'll be real spooky.
I might be really scared later. I mean, you'll hear my reactions. I'm not going to hide how scared I am, just so everyone knows. I can't put on a brave face. You can't see it.
A brave voice.
I will put on a brave voice. Okay, so you want to start with the first one that we have on our list?
Okay.
This is a duo story.
Yeah, this first one happened to both Kristen and I, and it happened just earlier this year.
Set the scene for me, Kaylee.
We were in the car driving to Walmart, I think.
As one does.
Yeah. And we were stopped at a stoplight, and then we saw the people in the car next to us, like,
They were
looking
like
at us.
looking directly into the car. I was
like,
driving.
made eye contact.
Right? I was driving, wasn't I? Or were you
I
driving?
was driving.
You
It
were
was my
driving.
car.
Okay, but like, I remember because we were stopped at the stop sign, or stoplight, and there was like a Demi Lovato song on, and I was
Yeah.
like bopping, because, you know, and then like we looked over and I was like, what are those people looking at?
I
Because
was
they
like-
were looking into our car.
They were
And then
definitely looking at us,
And then
I was
I
like, I don't know
noticed
them.
that they were like singing a song, but then I noticed that the song they were singing was the song on your radio, like the car radio, and the song had changed to match the song that they were singing. It wasn't Demi Lovato anymore. It was a completely different song.
Yeah, it was not the song that we had been listening to. They changed our song somehow. They were some sort of technological witches. And then when we drove away,
They were just like laughing.
Our song went back.
And like singing at us.
It was wild.
But like we could
Wow.
but like our windows were up. Like we could hear the music, but I could see them like lip syncing because they were clearly like hearing it too. But they were just like in their car, like looking into our car. How did they do it though?
Wow.
How did they control our radio station?
And
also
why?
their own. And yeah.
What's the point though? Like
They used their powers for chaos.
Who just
Chaos.
does that?
I have
Chaotic
so many
evil.
I was going to say chaotic, and then I said chaos, and it sounded strange.
They're chaotic.
Yes, we're
Evil.
now taking questions.
Okay, so first of all, I like how you first asked Kaylee, how did they control our radio and also their own? I'm pretty sure everybody knows how to control their own radio.
No, I mean,
But-
like, if they had a Bluetooth speaker where they could project it into the radio, how could they have done both ours
Oh.
and theirs?
Oh, you're,
How could they
you're
have gotten-
thinking deep
Does
now.
your car
Mine.
not have a Bluetooth though?
No.
So they couldn't have done a Bluetooth connection.
Yeah.
Oh, like across the way. Oh.
No, like Kaylee's radio doesn't do that.
Like, my friend had a thing that plugged into his car, and it intercepted the radio signal so he could play his own music on his radio.
Yeah.
But it had to be plugged in to his car, so how could they have controlled our car with something like that?
I don't know. It must have been like, okay, either some crazy technology where you can like scramble the radio signal coming from a specific point, like a car. But why did they have that, and why were they doing it?
And
Why
even
did they
if you
target
could,
us?
It would have to be stronger than a pre-existing radio signal,
Yeah.
that, like what you were listening
And these
to,
kids
so
were
that doesn't
like,
make
they
sense.
looked younger than us.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a really hard time telling how old people are, but they looked younger than us.
They were probably
Like, they were-
freshmen.
Up to no good
right.
children.
I guess my other question was, do you remember a distinct moment when the Demi Lovato song stopped and changed?
I don't remember that because
She was
didn't
driving.
really realize that it happened.
And
until-
I didn't notice either until because I was more distracted by them like looking directly at
Yeah.
us in the car. And then I saw,
Yeah, 'cause I looked
noticed
over.
that they were singing the song that was on the radio. And I went, wait a second. But the song didn't end from before. Like, it changed to match theirs.
Yeah, I was like, wait.
Because I was paying attention to them and then I noticed the music. But then as we drove away,
And then
there
it
was
went
a
back to the
distinct
original
point
song.
where it
Yeah.
like flipped back to the song. So
and
the
it
song,
was the original song
the
that
Demi
had
Lovato
been
song
on.
was still on. Like, it hadn't finished yet. So it wasn't some like weird radio, like they just cut the song real quick and they happened to be also doing it.
Right.
Yeah, because at first I thought maybe they were just listening to the same radio station, but then our radio changed back to the radio station
So
away
they
from.
changed your car's radio station.
Yeah, it was weird.
And then as we drove away, like we got far enough away from them, it changed back. Meaning it's like some kind of signal interceptor, or it's just witches.
Yeah, they had some
we
sort
call
of
them the
witchy
car witches.
power.
Yeah, I saw you guys
Those
wrote
car
in your
witches.
notes.
Yeah.
Those car witches.
Josh has revealed our secret notebook where we write notes so we can remember what we're talking about. And it
course.
says, those car witches. That's our first story. A scale of 1 out of 10 on the spook scale.
I give it a 3.
A 3! I don't know. The ranking will change as we continue with our other stories.
Yeah.
Paranormal, but not
I-
necessarily spooky.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Okay, the next story is mine, and it happened to me 2 summers ago in Italy, and I experienced a shift in the dimensions. So my boss, supervisor, and I drove into the downtown-ish area of the town where we were in Italy, and we parked 2 blocks off the main road, kind of in a residential area. We parked the car. We walked to back to the street. We walked 2 blocks up back to the main street where there was a pizzeria, a wine store, or whatever. There was Italian
Italian
stores.
stuff.
Drag, yeah, right.
It was, yeah. And then, so we were there, we did whatever we were doing, shop. I don't really remember. That's not important to the story. And we walked back. We walked 2 blocks back and looked, and our car, wasn't there. Which at first, we were like, oh, we just got the wrong one. But we knew for a fact that it was 2 blocks because we remembered so that we'd remember where we were. And what was weird was that these cars were they were all facing the opposite direction. We'd parked facing one way and all the other cars were facing that way. They were on the right side of the road, or like all facing one direction, but all of these cars were all facing the different direction. So we're like, this is definitely not where we parked.
Right.
But we counted 2, and this is 2. And then we walked back up 1, and that wasn't right either. All of those cars were parked the wrong direction. And then we walked back 1 more, and then our car was there. Like, it should have been the same place where we had just been, but it wasn't. Like, the dimension shifted while we were walking. It was just
Right. So
weird.
you went back to that street again, and then it was suddenly...
Yeah, we were
Wait,
on the
wait.
same block.
Wow.
Wait, you walked 2 blocks. You were parked 2 blocks in. You walked 2 blocks out to the main street. Then
Yes.
you walked 2 blocks back in.
Yeah.
The car
Wasn't
wasn't there.
Nope.
So you walked 1 block forward?
We walked 1 block back
toward
toward
the
the main
main-
street.
Okay, back toward the main
See,
street.
we thought maybe we counted
And
wrong.
then you walked back
Back just 1.
back to the same, like
The
2 blocks
original
in
street,
again.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where you thought it was and you were there.
It was there. The second time we were on that street.
Wait,
not
and the
first
cars
time.
were like
Yeah.
facing
Oh
the
my
opposite
goodness,
way?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's freaking me out.
Oh my god.
I'm picturing Inception, that scene where the street like folds upside down. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
I mean, I've never seen Inception, but like I've seen a lot
Well,
of like
all of your
clips.
listeners know.
it was really weird, and we both just like looked at each other and we're like,
What?
"What happened?" Like,
You walked the same route. Like you didn't move a little bit to the left, like a block over and then up. Like you went like back and then back again.
yeah,
Like,
it was like the same
street.
place.
That blows my mind.
It was so strange. We were both like,
I didn't remember
"This is
like
a shift in reality that we just experienced here together in Italy on these streets."
I remember when I don't even know when you told me this story for the first time, but it was a long time ago. Like I'd forgotten until you brought it up. Like, oh, well, my shift in reality when we like parked my car and I was like, wait, what?
It was
And then
weird.
I remembered because it's just wild. Like, but you clearly knew. I mean, especially if you're like traveling abroad and you
Yeah.
have to keep track of where you are so you
Yeah.
don't get lost.
Yes.
Like, you know where stuff is at. You're like, I specifically like point out certain things. Like, oh, that building is green.
Yeah,
So,
like, most of
when
the
I see
time-
that green building, I turn right.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time I'd be like, "Oh, we just forgot, or we got turned around," or like today when we were trying to find your car and we just couldn't find
Okay,
it.
well.
But no, I remember that I specifically remembered we walked 2 blocks and then I didn't want to get lost. We was like, well, we walked 2, it's here. Let's go back 1. So we wouldn't get lost. And then we went back 1 more, like back to the
Yeah.
original 2 blocks in, and then it was there. And we were like, this
Because
is
remembering to walk 2 blocks like isn't hard. It's just 2.
no. I
And if
forget
it's like
a lot of
off
things.
of the main street, you're just like, well, we walked, like this is where we came out. So if we just walk 2 blocks in, that's where the car will be. But it wasn't.
It wasn't.
And the fact that the part that
yeah.
really
And it
blows
wasn't
my
just that the car
mind,
wasn't there. All of the cars were the wrong
the
direction.
wrong way. That just
Yeah, like that gives me a little creep there.
gives me the
And
heebie-jeebies.
Kaylee, the thought that it's still bothering you now shows how sure you are that
I
you
am
were
sure.
correct and something's up.
Yeah.
You may have entered a different dimension.
I did for a
And
moment. It was just a
therefore,
block of
Kristen
street.
and I are
I
not
mean,
the
no.
Josh and Kristen that
We
you
came
first
back
became.
to the
we
original
came back.
direction.
No, if she would have not found her car and been like, well, I guess our car was stolen or something.
Oh, right.
That
then-
would have been
then
the
she
wrong
would have been
dimension.
stuck in the wrong dimension.
Okay, so you entered a different dimension.
We did
but
come
then
back
came
to the original dimension.
You went, this isn't right.
At
This
some point
can't be
on
my
those streets, we
dimension."
went through and then back through some sort of portal to an alternate dimension or
Comment
something.
below if you've ever lost where your car is parked and you just blame it on being in another dimension.
That's definitely up a scale on the spooky factor for sure.
I'd give that a 5 on the spook scale.
5.
I'm
five.
not like quaking in my boots or anything, but
It's not like scary, but it's
I
a
don't
little
have
bit spooky.
I don't have goosebumps. I'm not curled up tight in a ball. I'm just a little bit puzzled and a little bit frustrated that this stuff can happen.
It was really weird.
And then it did happen to my friend. What if you'd been trapped there?
What if I was trapped in an alternate dimension?
Well, you just have alternate dimension me and Josh, I guess.
yeah, I would be doing this podcast with alternate dimension, Kristen.
And you'd be like, yeah, one time I went through this dimension and like my car was missing. And that's all that happened. Like you didn't find it back. You were like, yeah, I just lost my car.
I think that'd be a weirder story if I was stuck in an alternate dimension.
I never found my car, so I could never go back to the dimension where I'm from.
And then I dedicate my life to trying to get my way back into the original dimension.
I mean, that sounds like a great story.
Yeah, I smell a novel there.
Okay.
All right, ready to move on?
Next spooky story.
So this story is my story, and it actually is probably the most recent of all of these, because it happened, what, September?
3 weeks.
It was early September, I think. It would have had to have been.
Yeah.
I think maybe the week before my birthday or something like that.
Yeah, it was before your birthday.
It was before my birthday. My birthday's at the end of September, for reference. But anyway, so we went to our friend Sierra's house. We've mentioned Sierra before. I know she loves a good shout out. And we were there to play D&D, right? And we get inside and we're like setting all of our stuff up to play D&D, right? I've got like my laptop out on the table and Kaylee's got her stuff. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, where's my phone? And I thought, well, maybe I put it where my keys were because I set them like on their little entryway table. I put my keys out there because I was like, I don't want to forget them. But then I went, oh, I think I'll just put my keys in my backpack instead. But I went out there and I got my keys and my phone wasn't there. And I looked all through my backpack because I thought maybe I just dropped it like into a pocket of my backpack and it's just down in there somewhere. You know, like you just throw your phone in a bag and then you have to go like all the way down to the bottom to get it. But it wasn't in there. And I asked, I was like, hey, has anyone seen my phone? I don't know where I put it, but like I literally just walked into your home. I didn't even make it, like I just stepped into the dining room and that's as far as I got. Like I didn't move into any other room of the house. I just walked in. I figured, oh, you know what? I probably just never took it out off of my dash mount and it's just in my car still, which is fine because like it's just in my car. It's fine. I don't need my phone. We're just going to play D&D. Like my phone has nothing to do with that. So I was like, that's fine. I'll just get it like when we leave because obviously we're driving back. But the end of the night, like we're done playing. We get all of our stuff packed up. We're like, okay, good night, everybody. Thanks. See you later. And we leave and we get in my car and my phone is not in the dash mount. And I turn to Kaylee and I go, where is my phone? Because at this point, like I just kind of forgot about it while we were playing. But like losing your phone is really serious, right?
Can confirm.
So I was like actually anxious at this point. Like, wait, where did it go? So Kaylee's like got her phone flashlight on and is like looking on the floor of my car because maybe
we looked all through
maybe
the car.
I like dropped it in the act of like putting my backpack on or like walking up to the house.
Yeah, we retraced the path all the way up to the door.
I'm positive that I walked into that house with that phone in my hand, like with my keys and my phone in one hand. So I was like, I entered this house with my phone and I can't find it. So we like knock on their door because we already left. We're like, knock, knock. We're back. Guess what? My phone's not in the car. So I need to find it. And like you had already tried calling it before because I was like, can you just call it real quick? Because I think it might be in my backpack. And you called it and we didn't hear anything. And so then they called it again and everyone Sierra was like, shh, everybody be quiet. Kristen can't find her phone. So everyone was like, shh. And we sat there. And we couldn't, like, hear anything for a second. And then someone, I don't remember who, was like, wait.
It was Marissa.
She was like, wait a second. Wait. And she turns around because on the opposite side of the living room, like, the dining room, like, the part that I never went to, I didn't go to that side of the room.
Yeah, you didn't go to that side of the room.
On top of an entertainment center is my phone, like, amongst a bunch of other stuff that's just, like, part of their house. There is my phone. And she, like, picked it up. And was like, is this your phone? I'm like, yeah, but I never went over there. And nobody moved anything. Like at one point there was stuff on the table when we walked in and like somebody gathered it all up because we needed the space to play. They wouldn't have moved my phone.
Yeah,
they wouldn't. You don't pick up a stranger's phone and put it somewhere else.
And the stuff that they had moved, I don't think they put it.
They didn't put it
on
there.
top of.
Well, did you ask everybody?
Yeah, and
we were like, did any? Because the people that like had cleared the table were like, no, I never saw a phone, and I didn't like move anything up there. Like they set it on like a lower shelf, so they never touched my phone. They didn't. Like, I don't even think they knew what it looked like. I was like, it's blue.
Yeah, no one remembered seeing your phone all night.
I was like, it's a blue phone.
That's why we thought it was in the car, because...
Yeah, and so it was the weirdest thing. And, like, before, when you had called me, like, I didn't hear it.
No.
Or it was on vibrate, but, like, I didn't hear it. And it was the weirdest thing ever, because nobody moved my phone. but I didn't go to that side of the room. Because sometimes, like, I admit, I'll carry my phone somewhere and then I just set it down and then I go someplace else and I go, where did I put my phone? And then I, like, wander back into the room where I came from and I'm like, oh, there it is. I just set it on the floor for some reason.
But why would you have set it on top of that entertainment center?
But I didn't even walk over there.
Yeah, exactly.
I never went to that part of the room because I just, like, walked into the dining room and sat down. And I never, like, we played and then I left. Like, I didn't go to that part of the room. So there's no reason my phone should have been over there. And anyway, the, like, culmination of this very long story is that the Sierra's roommates and stuff have been joking that there's a ghost in their house named Jeff. Why that's his name, I don't know. But they said that Jeff, like, makes noises and I don't know, like, I guess moves stuff. And they were like, it must be Jeff. Like, he just moved your phone. And so, like, I guess a ghost moved my phone just to mess with me, because it really did. Like, I was super duper anxious. So it makes no sense. That's my story.
And I've heard stories like that of ghosts moving things just, like, across the room or even a few feet.
I would give this story...
I don't think it's scary.
A 6. Like, it's not scary. It's a brush with the supernatural for sure.
It's spooky.
But
it's
at least,
not scary.
But at least Jeff is like a, what's the word? He's not
a
like
malevolent
malevolent?
spirit. Malevolent?
He's like a...
Maleficent.
Like, trickery, but not bad.
He's not an evil spirit. All right. Do we want to crank up the spook? And get to Josh's stories now?
He's been here this whole
Is it
time,
me?
but it's finally time for him
Josh
to speak.
has 2 stories, and he's promised us that he'll tell the least spooky one first. But just know that these might get much spookier than our stories. Maybe, in fact, scary.
Ooh. Are we crossing the... What number on the spook factor crosses
I don't
into
know.
scary?
You know the story.
I gave Kristen's a 6.
So shall we say, like, a 7 and above is considered scary?
I'm already, like, gritting my teeth. I'm so nervous.
I heard at least one of these stories in a Buffalo Wild Wings.
What would you give it? Well, the Buffalo Wild Wings probably was not a good atmosphere for a spooky story.
True.
No.
I'm going to do that one last just because it's going to be longer.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that one you'll find more interesting.
He means scary.
Yeah. Ready?
All right. Yes. I'm ready. I'm really scared.
Okay, this first one comes from high school. So we're going back. In high school, I realized that I really wanted to be a teacher and was, like, doing the whole, like, you know, experiences where I could be with kids, doing camps and stuff like that. So I babysat a lot, and it wasn't uncommon for me to babysit families with multiple kids. So this is about a family, something that happened while I was babysitting a family. They have 10 kids now.
Whoa.
But at the time, they only had 4. And I'm just going to change their names just because I feel weird,
yeah,
like,
that seems
sharing
like a pretty good...
things about kids.
You didn't ask them if you could use their names.
Yeah, so this is, I'm just trying to set the scene. So this was, again, middle of high school. I can't tell you what year, but I was babysitting these 4 kids for a weekend, which also was not an uncommon thing for me to do. Yeah. So it's a random weeknight, and there are 4 kids. I'm going to give them the names Henry, Savannah, Luke, and Lily, just because those were names that popped into my head earlier today. And it was that time in the night where everybody, like, all the kids were put down to bed, and everything's, like, quiet, and you realize, okay, no, like, the baby is not going to stir, and no one's going to, you know, make any noise, and I think I'm, like, done for the day and can go to bed.
Uh-huh.
And we'll say that Luke is 2-ish. Lily she's a little bit over 1, somewhere in there. They were like, what's that called? Irish twins? When you're, like, born in the same year as your sibling. I think so. So they were like that. And then the other 2, Henry and Savannah, were like 6-ish or 5 or 6. Okay, so Henry and Savannah, because they're older, they shared a bedroom, and then Luke and Lily shared a bedroom. It was like the nursery kind of thing. And mom and dad were away, I think just for the night or something like that. So I was getting into bed, aka laying on the couch in the living room. And again, it was that moment when, you think it's the end of the night and it's been quiet just long enough that that the kids are asleep and you can finally go to sleep. And in that time, I'm starting to slowly fall asleep, and suddenly I just hear the wildest cry out of a baby that I've ever heard in my life.
Have you ever
heard those, like, I mean, yeah, you've heard a baby cry, but like the ugly, like, you think they're gonna hurt themselves because they're crying so loud, like it's
like
it's bad.
Yeah, I'm picturing it, and so
my
shoulders are hunched.
Yeah, so that's coming from Lily in the bedroom, and so the living room, there's a hallway jetting out of the living room. The first door on the left is where Luke and Lily are at, and then you have to go farther down the hallway to the bedroom where Savannah and Henry are, the older two kids. So I know it's coming from Lily, so I immediately, jump up and I run to her. I'm like hoping to kind of calm her down so that not all the kids wake up and it just becomes this long thing. So I open the door, and the room is very small. It's the size of maybe like a large walk-in closet or so. Just enough for when you walk in, on one wall there's the crib, and then on the other wall is the little bed. So Lily was in a crib still, and Luke was on the little bed. And there's basically just like a walkway between the two beds. That's about it. That's all you can really fit in the room. They couldn't even fit the changing table in there. They had to do that elsewhere. So that's how small this room is. So I open up the door. It's dark, and I see Lily is standing up, holding on to the crib rail, and she's looking across the room up above.
I don't like this.
She's looking above Luke's bed, and she's kind of looking at the corner, not the corner of the room, but the section where the wall meets the ceiling. That just like
the spookiest corner.
Right, where all the spiders
the
hang
shadows
out. You know
are.
what I mean? Yeah, that's what I think.
Oh god.
So she's just looking at like that meeting point, where the ceiling and the wall are meeting, and wailing, and like I opened the door, she didn't look at me. I'm saying Lily as I'm walking up to her, she's not looking at me. She is looking at this fixed point.
Hard.
Yeah. She's looking at this fixed point on the wall, freaking out, and I pick her up, and I'm kind of, holding her and shushing her, and she is still so fixated that as I'm turning my body, as I'm holding her, she's adjusting her head so that she can keep locked on spot on the wall.
I have to get closer to Kaylee.
And that's when I kind of noticed that it was like weird, like, oh, what's she looking at? I'm thinking there's something on the wall, so I turn to look closer at that spot on the wall, and I notice it's right above Luke's bed. And Luke, this is when I first noticed, Luke is sitting in his bed, staring at the exact...
No, please, oh my god, I'm sure it's so much.
Luke is just staring at the exact same point on the wall, but he's silent. Entirely silent.
I hate this.
I'm gonna cry.
You are crying.
I am like hunched. Haley and I are like pressed shoulder to shoulder. I need a human comfort right now.
Yeah,
boy.
It's spooky, I will say. And I immediately, my heart is racing, and I'm just holding...
Oh my god.
I'm holding Lily. She's not really crying anymore, but it's still like kind of focused on that area. I look at Luke, and I just, quietly go, Luke. And he is like not looking at me. So I take Lily out of the room, and I go put her in the living room, because it's decided in that moment that no one's sleeping in that room for the rest of the night. So I go, put her on the ground, like on the carpet in the living room, and I go back for Luke, and as I go back to Luke, the door isn't all the way closed, but it's like closed. So not to the point where the latch clicks.
But like when you left the room, the door was like fully open.
The door was open, yeah. So
I hate
the
this
door
so
closes
much.
to the point where the latch doesn't latch, but It's closed.
You know,
pretty
like
much.
when you leave a door open a crack. It's like that.
Like a crack, yeah. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
I do that all the time to doors. Like, I don't fully shut it, but I just like, you know, it's open enough.
Yeah.
It's considered open, but it's basically shut.
Yeah, right. So I noticed that and thought that was scary. Like, that was weird. So I step inside the room. I open the door all the way again to where it was. I step inside the room and just kind of look at the door. Luke is still doing his thing, looking up at the wall. So I look at the door and I just want to see if the door moves at all. It doesn't move. So I walk out across the threshold to see if my walking by like blew it, like I caused.
You're being
the
very
wind
logical
to-
in this situation,
Yeah.
and where
And
I would
this
not
is
be.
I think this is my moment of in a scary movie when they act dumb. Like, this was me, right? The police should be on their way by now. You know what I mean? And the door didn't move, so I was like, okay, this is strange. This is not right. So I go and I just scoop up Luke, and again, as I turn to carry him out, he is doing everything he can to move his body.
Shivers
to
are running
stay
down my back.
looking at that thing. Like, he's moving his arms, you know, kind of pushing off of my chest so that he can see the spot on the wall.
I am quaking.
Yeah,
This is
so I
very spooky.
take Luke back and I glance back to see the door is still open, just to make sure that I'm almost too fixated on this door thing at this point. And I set him down with Lily, and they're both calm. And at that point, I need to check and see if the other two are awake from the crying that happened when Lily was crying. Because if they were to wake up, they would just they just play in their room and color and stuff and make a mess, and they should be sleeping. So I needed to make sure that they were sleeping. So I go back down the hallway to check on them. And sure enough, I go back down the hallway, and that door is closed in the same fashion again. It's like just open by the crack. And I, mind you, was only gone for, 15,
'cause it was just
20
down the
seconds.
hallway.
Right. And that it was a short amount of time.
Like, you essentially just turned your back.
Essentially, yeah. And I mean, I did have to kind of go around a corner, so I couldn't have, like, there was a moment where I would not be able to just turn around and see
But, like,
the door.
you were in the room before for about the same duration of
Yes,
time, and
yes.
the door didn't move.
Yes. The thing that I remember so clearly about that night was the short amount of time between when I went to the living room and back, and that door closing in such a short amount of time. That was, I don't know, that was weird to me. So I go back, the door is open a crack, and that at that point I am like officially not okay and like admitting it to myself, you know? So I just close the door fully, like the
Sounds good.
crack all the way, and I go into the other room, and I kind of peek in to see if the other two are sleeping or not. And as I'm they're sleeping, and as I'm looking at them, I just think, you know what? Why would I just leave them here? I'm obviously gonna take them. So I grab them, and basically I wake them up, and I'm like, I remember going over to Savannah and saying, oh, we're gonna do a sleepover in the living room tonight. Like, we're all gonna get together and just all sleep together. So I grab both of them, and we go out into the living room, and they, think it's a great, fun thing that we're doing. And it was to the point they were all kind of laying down and falling asleep again. And I just said, if anything else happens tonight, I'm going to call the police. And I would rather be embarrassed to have somebody come out here and just say, this
God,
babysitter is scared of the dark or whatever. But nothing else happened in that night, and I eventually fell asleep. The next morning, I called the parents and told them kind of what had happened the night before, and they came home like right away because I think it was freaking them out.
Well, I bet you sounded
And
probably a
I
little
get
bit freaked
back-
out.
Yeah, I'm sure. They get back, and I'm telling them the story, and I kind of notice a weird body language between the two of them, where it felt like Mom wanted to tell me something, and Dad was giving her,
I'm
like,
shivering so hard.
No.
signs. Yeah.
It's spooky again.
Why did that get spooky?
Yeah,
Oh, interpersonal
So
relationships.
finally, I do find out what happened. So Mom goes off to do whatever, maybe unpack or whatever. And Dad is driving me home and basically tells me, he's like, yeah, specifically in that room, that's the second time we've had that instance with Luke and Lily. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't want to say, like, is it a spirit or something like that.
Is your house haunted?
I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to put a word to it because I just didn't, I wanted to refuse the fact of that I might have been a part of, like, a haunted moment. I did not, in my high school days, I did not want to be a part of that storyline ever. So I never really got to that point, but kind of asked him indirectly. And he said, he basically, like, was like, it's nothing to worry about, blah, blah, blah. And long story short, though, within the next month, about a month, their house was up for sale, and they moved to a nice little house in the countryside. Yeah, they told me that...
I'm shivering so hard.
Yeah. They told me
Guys, that was like the cap of my spook sit. Like, if it wasn't Josh telling this story and it was like someone that was actively trying to be scarier, like, I would have to leave the room.
Emily's not going to listen to this podcast.
I almost, like, I wanted to plug my ears. Like, that's how scared I was, where I wanted to go, like, full, like, plug my ears, shut my eyes. I did. That was such a good story, but that was so scary.
Yeah.
But, like, yo, it's not a big deal, says the dad, as his children are screaming at this thing.
And I noticed that it was a big deal to him in my, 17-year-old self. I could tell that he was worried. I know the family well still to this day. All those kids are like siblings to me, so I honestly could go and ask their dad, hey,
let's get him on the podcast.
Can I get the background behind this now that, like, I'm older and you think I can probably handle what's been going on? What happened in that old house?
Remember when I was at your house and it was haunted?
And the scariest part about this story, in my opinion, is that they're little children. They are, babies, and they both were acting the same way. They
little
both were
children
staring at the same thing.
animals
have said
can
that.
see paranormal, like, spirits
Exactly.
more than adults can. They're more attuned to that sort of thing.
So that's what really scared me, is I was
That
almost
they were
going to
children.
ask you,
As soon as you said they were children, I was like, oh no, this is going to be
I
spooky.
was like, the fact that, like, they saw something and were both looking at the same point, but, like, you looked there and saw nothing, right? Like, you didn't see anything.
Right.
But they both clearly, like, it's one thing for a person to, like, see something and overreact and, like, like, you see something in a shadow and you're like, oh, what was that? And then, like, good grief. Like, I see a purse sitting on the ground and I go, oh, is that my cat? And then I get closer and I'm like, nope, it's just a purse and I just can't see. But it's another thing for, like, two children independently to look at something and, like, both focus on the same thing.
The fact that the one wasn't crying, just, like, staring at it is even spookier for some reason.
I'm like, I can't be shaking any harder than I am right now. I'm not exaggerating. Like, I am literally, like, quivering with fear. Yeah, that is a great story. Thank you for that.
You. I,
I'm really
never wanted it to happen to me.
I'm terrified to hear the second one. But at the same time, I'm desperate to hear the second one.
I would give that story...
That was like a 9. Like, I think if it was... I
don't know if I want to give it a 10, because it could have been spookier, but it was very spooky.
It could have been spookier.
It was scary.
It was actually... I'm very scared. I would call it, like, terrifying, because I'm very scared.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Honestly, in my opinion, I think it might be scarier than the one I'm going to tell now, but I think the one I'm going to tell is more interesting.
That's a very scary story.
Okay, I'm ready to hear the second story now.
Okay. Kaylee, again, has heard this one. This is a story from when I was in Japan, and it was 2 summers ago. I have been to Japan 5 times now. This was my 4th trip there, my, like, 3rd summer there, and I was there with a bunch of friends, and they all had interest in going to the forest called Aokigahara, I think is how you say it. And it's commonly known as the Suicide Forest. Now, before I start telling the story, I kind of want to say that I'm going to be telling this in a very respectful manner, because this forest has been the center of pop culture lately with the things going on with the YouTube guy and the stuff like that. I think you both have heard of this forest,
yes.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I first heard of it probably 5 or 6 years ago. I have been terrified of it, didn't want anything to do with it. Never, every time I went to Japan, never had an interest of going anywhere near that forest. the thing that really gets me is when I found out a few years ago that they were making a movie about it, a motion picture about this forest and making it a scary movie, I was offended a little bit, or not offended, but annoyed or angered at our Hollywood industry for trying to capitalize on such a huge issue. It's not something to go and see as a tourist and be like, oh, this is a, it's not a haunted house that you go to with
You're
your
not
friends.
meant to enjoy it.
Right. It's the country of Japan has the highest suicide rate in the world, and this forest is where a lot of people go to commit suicide. It's like a problem that they are trying to fix, obviously, and to go there and make movies about it. And there sure are a lot of myths and lore that go behind the forest, but to capitalize on it, I just feel like that's a bit wrong, in my opinion. It would be like if someone from Japan made a movie about a major issue that was going on in America right now, I'm trying to think of an example.
Well, I think it's more along the lines of the fact that for Japan, like, this place is like a place of sorrow.
Right, yeah.
But to make a movie about it that is scary,
Right.
it erases the issue of suicide and mental illness and instead just makes it it's a scary forest,
Right.
and you'll be scared while you watch this movie, and it like
in reality
erases that entire
yeah.
issue that Japan is really trying to focus on and like help
and fix
its
right.
people.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where the real problem is,
right.
I think.
So so going into this, I just want everybody to know that I see that it is not this just fun touristy thing. Now, going into the summer, I was very much like wanting to go do a lot of nature things in Japan. I've been to Tokyo 100 times. I was living just between Tokyo and the forest, and I wanted to see more nature. So the friends of mine were very set on going there, and they wanted the spook, they wanted the scare factor. And while that again isn't for me, it's not something that I would discourage from other people. I think, live your life, do what you want to do while you're in Japan, that's fine. And so they were set on going to this forest at some point in the summer, and I was always like, nope, that's not for me. I will definitely be doing something else whenever you go. So the week kind of approaches, and long story short, my friends convinced me to go with them. They were showing me pictures of this forest, and it was very beautiful. Lately, I had been wanting to go hiking really bad, and it's not by any means a hiking spot, but it was still like a forest, and I thought it would be fun to walk. Mm-hmm. They said we weren't going to go, off the trails. We were going to just do a short, easy path, and that would be that, and see a cool cave. And I thought, okay, that sounds like fun. I can do that and enjoy it. So to give you some background about the forest, there are, I think, around 100 bodies found every year of people who go in and commit suicide, and that's just the ones that are found. They say there are a lot more. You can watch a lot of documentaries about it, like short little documentaries on YouTube. Japan has a lot of volunteers that go in and try to find the bodies. The idea is Japan's high suicide rate is because of their workforce. They work hard and they work too much, and so a lot of people choose that as their route. And they go into the forest, and there's kind of like two types of people that enter the forest when they're considering suicide. And the first one is the person who knows that they are going to do it, and they're not backing out. And the other one is the person who is going to go into the forest and think about it. So the person who's going into it usually is like, and they're like, the person that knows that they're gonna do it, they aren't bringing anything with them because they don't need anything. They're just gonna go in, and that's that. Mm-hmm. The other person who's contemplating it is gonna bring stuff with them. They might bring a tent. They might bring like gloves or climbing sticks. I don't know what are those called?
Walking sticks?
Little walking sticks, yeah. And another thing they often do is leave like a Hansel and Gretel trail, and they'll take like a string and tie it around trees and make a little path for them. So the forest itself it's interesting because it is very eerie. The entire forest is very spooky, but it's also kind of beautiful, if that makes sense. If you can have something be beautiful, but also very eerie. I think it's eerie because all of the trees are very close to each other and they all look the same. There isn't a lot of different types of vegetation. It's just like trees and moss on the ground, and that's about it. The forest is at the base of Mount Fuji, and lava rock came off the Mount Fuji's last major eruption, which was like 1,000 years ago. This lava came down, and basically only certain types of trees were able to, vegetation was able to grow on it. And that, I guess, all led to a bunch of trees that all kind of twist naturally on their own. They have, those, think of like a spooky tree that kind of twists and turns.
Like a gnarled tree.
Yeah, they kind of look like pine trees, but they have that spooky.
Yeah, they got like
twisty
crooked,
turn.
windy branches.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a craggly tree.
Yeah, and they're very dense, so you can walk not too far and not be able to see somebody who you were with earlier because it's just so dense. So that makes it really pretty, but again, very creepy at the same time. The other thing that I remember when we were in the forest was how quiet it was. Just so quiet. We never saw any animals. We never heard anything. It was to the point where if you've ever been in like a recording studio or something where just there's no echo, sort of like that. And it's like I remember like my breath was like it was just loud. Like my breath sounded like,
like you're really hyper aware of your own sounds.
Yeah, it sounded like a low, deep shout when I breathed, if that makes sense. It was,
if the only thing that you can hear around you is the noise that you make, it sounds like a lot louder.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if all of a sudden you're aware of like the sounds that your mouth makes when you talk, and then that's all you can think about for a couple minutes, where you're like, oh, why am I so like loud?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think we were all kind of talking in hushed tones because we didn't need to talk loud at all. We could whisper to each other and totally hear everything we were saying. So that was another kind of all of that just makes it a very spooky place. It's kind of dark because the trees are very dense. There's not a lot of room for wind, so it's just still. It's completely still. That's another thing I remember about it. Anyway, so people go in there, and if they are committed to doing it, they just kind of keep walking in to the point where even if they wanted to turn back, they would be lost because everywhere you turn looks exactly the same. It's all just dense trees. Okay, you get the idea. Mm-hmm. So this forest started becoming a suicide, I guess, hotspot, if I can say that, because there's a lot of folklore with the forest. I looked up the word. I want to get it right. I think it's like there's a tradition, and it's kind of debated as to whether or not it actually happened or if it's just folklore.
Yeah.
But it's called Uba Sute, which means abandoning of old women, or Oya Sute, which is abandoning of a parent. So it's the idea that if a village is struggling to survive, they can't feed all their mouths, they might take an elderly person or a sick person out into a desert or a mountain or a very thick forest that's hard to navigate in, and they just drop off a person like in like a grandma or something, and just leave them there to die, just so that their village can prosper and keep moving on. And so this forest was, again, it's debatable whether or not this actually happened or not, but this forest was considered a hot spot. And so they'd leave people there to die, and either they couldn't walk back or they would be lost and they would die out there. And so it's thought that it's haunted because their spirits, I guess, are still lost in the woods today trying to find their way out, which is spooky, right? Like that's so all spooky. And at that point, you learn that and you're like, why on earth would I ever want to go walk around a suicide forest, And I shouldn't have gone, but I did. So we get there and we kind of walk off there's a main road that drives into the forest. I was very interested in going to this cave. They have an ice cave and a wind cave.
Ooh.
Apparently the lava from Mount Fuji made a lot of caves, and everything's very rough, and it's there's no really smooth area. The trees just kind of, all the tree roots just kind of grow into the cracks and stuff in the lava rock. So there's a road that goes to these two main caves, and there's like a parking lot area. Now you can park in the parking lot and then take a trail up to the cave, which is what we were doing. We were taking a trail up to this ice cave to see it. And it was my impression we were going to just hike up that trail and then come back down that trail, and that was going to be that. I heard that trail was very poppin'. It was like a lot of people were using that trail, and it's kept up by the government or whoever. And
Yeah.
so I really wasn't too scared about hiking that short trail, and I wanted to kind of see what the sea of trees looked like. Aokigahara means sea of trees.
Oh.
So I wasn't too spooked at the moment, but after we stopped in the parking lot, we kind of walked in, and again, just imagine a wall of thick trees, and as soon as you kind of walk in, it's dark right away, because you immediately enter the thickness of the forest. Ooh. So it's immediately dark and immediately quiet. It was weird turning around and seeing the road in the parking lot and not hearing anything coming from it. It was very interesting. So we start walking on the trail. It's not too bad. There's a group of us, 8 of us, and we're having fun. And my friends Shannon and Katie are with me, and they're kind of keeping my spirits high, and I'm feeling good. And as we're walking, again, noticing how quiet it is and things like that, we walk to the ice cave, and we go down in the ice cave, and that was fun to see. And we come back up from the ice cave, and I kind of notice that there's another parking lot by the ice cave, and that's where all the Japanese locals were parked. And so I was just asking, I only saw 2 people on this trail up to the ice cave. Why doesn't anybody want to park and hike the trail to the ice cave? Why did everybody just drive straight to the cave? Is that just the thing that you do here? And everybody was kind of yeah, that's weird. I don't know. They must have just not wanted to hike today or whatever it was. And I was okay, that's interesting. But still kind of was you would think more people would want to walk the trail to the cave. I don't know. So we're starting to walk back, and we notice the path to the old trail. There's an old trail that goes further into the woods, and the trail is kind of blocked off just with one single chain with a little sign dangling from it, and there's a big sign to the side of the beginning of the old trail, and we were wondering what it said, and everybody kind of stopped to look at it, and I'm kind of uncomfortable because I just think we should just leave. We had our fun at the ice cave, and it's time to leave. And everybody stops, and somebody gets out their phone, and phones are cool because they can I guess there's an app, and you can show the camera.
Google Translate can look at text and sort of translate it.
Yeah, it was cool. So
it kind of works.
Someone did that, and they were reading off kind of what that sign said, and it was basically a sign warning people and asking people to not leave the main trail that we were on. And it said things like, think of your family, and I think there was a phone number to call, and just kind of was convincing people not to do it, basically. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm whoa, okay, yep, interesting, time to get out of here. And everybody I start kind of walking down the trail, and then I kind of realize that nobody is following me. And so I stop, and I turn around, and I look, and everybody's just kind of looking down at their shoes, and no one's moving. And I realize in that moment, oh, swear words, I have been conned into something bigger than I thought it was. So I realize, that my friends are definitely going to go down this old trail. And I'm really, guys, really, you couldn't have told me that you were going to do this. I would have just probably stayed home at that point. And I know that a couple of them were no, we really want to, explore it or whatever. But I didn't think everybody there was going to be so interested in going off the main trail. But they were. So they they all kind of just start going off onto this old trail, and it's me and my friends Shannon and Katie, and they're like, we just want to go a little ways and we'll come right back. You can wait here. And of course, in my mind, I'm like, no, you're not leaving me alone in the suicide forest.
Well, that's why it's
funny.
really crappy of them to just do that, because you're like, what am I going to do? Just like stand here by myself?
Or
Absolutely
walk
not.
back through the forest by
And
yourself.
Shannon and Katie did tell me, they said, we want to go off the trail. But I thought that I would maybe be waiting not in the forest, you know, and like we would do our thing, go to the cave, and then they could have their fun while I'm waiting elsewhere or something like that. But that was just the timing of it. And so I really wasn't too like upset with them, but just upset with myself for like being in this situation, because I had all the opportunities to not be there. And they start going, and I'm of course going to follow them, and we step onto the old trail, and I'm immediately more like freaked out. The old trail, the trees had kind of overgrown it, so there were leaves over it, and the branches were hanging more over it, so you kind of almost had to duck a little bit just because there's so many branches. And we're walking,
The
and
setting is spooky.
Shannon, Katie, and I kind of get farther behind the group, the other like 5 in the group, and they notice one of the strings that I mentioned earlier, the Hansel and Gretel breadcrumb trail. And they walk over to the beginning of the string where they see it. It's just a few yards off the trail. And we really hadn't walked that far. I could still see the regular trail in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
So we walk up to where they are. We're still standing on the old trail, and they start following the string.
Oh my God.
And in my mind, I just cannot understand that. Why would you want to follow the string if not wanting to see a body? Like, you are following that string because you want to see a dead body. That is why you are doing that. You're not following that string because you think you're going to see something cool that is not a dead body. You know what I mean? Like,
Like, that's what it leads to.
What would you expect to find?
Right. I couldn't comprehend that fact that these friends of mine, like, that I think are just great people, totally normal people, and I still do, but that they just wanted to see what was at the end of that string, knowing that at best it would be maybe like an abandoned tent, or
why are people humans were so dumb.
I can't fathom it. I don't get it. So they're going, and Katie and Shannon, you know, again, they wanted to kind of see the spookiness of it, and they just kind of were being sensitive to me, but just said, we just kind of want to go stand right at the edge of the rope, and like Katie wants to take a picture or something like that.
Well,
and I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Like, it was just a few yards from me, you know, like the length of a car maybe. And I was like, yeah, you guys, like, go ahead. I'm gonna be right here, but please don't follow the string, and like stay with me. They're like, of course. So they go, you know, again, just the length of a car away from me. They're standing there, and they're watching the group follow the string, and it's all rocky, you know, a lot of ups and downs in there. They're watching the group, and I kind of get a little uncomfortable and decide that I'm too far away from Shannon and Katie, so I step off the trail and go up and stand right next to them while they're taking a picture of the rope. And they're just standing there, and the 3 of us are just standing there, and we're just watching the other group as they slowly kind of disappear past, you know, through the trees, and to the point when we can't see them through the trees anymore.
I hate
And the
it.
3 of us are standing there, and it's just really, really quiet. Like, in my opinion, it was quieter than it had been earlier, if that's possible. And an interesting thing about my friend Shannon is she has a lot of experiences with ghosts and like spirits, and
We should have her on the podcast.
You could do a whole.
Oh no,
you
I'm
could do a
already
whole
so
series with her.
scared just by this.
I never believed in ghosts or spirits or anything until I met Shannon, and I
don't
swear
want to. I
she
don't want
could
to
be
hear her
like
talk
a
about it.
medium. Like,
Didn't you
it's
meet her
intense.
after your ghost child?
That's true. So I guess I did believe in something at that point, but I
something
like
happened,
I
but
full
he
on
didn't
believe
necessarily
in like
believe it.
I believe in like the full on like culture of it all now. You know, after talking to Shannon's stories, and Shannon gets like feelings. She she can feel when something isn't right, and she can feel spirits before they act, and then they do, and it's just very interesting. Like her house last year had a ghost in it, and she felt it when they moved in, and she told her roommates, and then they just had all these things start happening in their house throughout like things moved, and like you were saying, like those sorts of things happen. So Shannon, I swear she has a gift for it. But the three of us are standing there. The group is too far away from us at this point, and Shannon, I don't remember how she said it, but she basically was saying that she was not getting good vibes. And I think that was why she was not going to follow the rope, because she was not feeling good vibes from this. And she had even been to the forest the year before, so this was particularly different. I remember her saying that. So it was not making me feel very good, and shortly after she had said that, the three of us are just standing there, looking at the rope, waiting for our friends to come back. And okay, so this is the part that I don't know how to explain it well, so you just kind of have to go with me. At the same time, all three of us heard something without it actually being a sound per se. And Shannon puts it best. She says, like, when we talked about it later and we've told people about it, it was more of like a feeling of a presence, not necessarily a sound, if you can understand that. I try to interpret it or try to explain it as, have you ever been in a room where your back is to the door or something like that, and somebody enters the room and you just know that somebody's now in the room with you? Have you ever had that feeling? Or like if somebody tries to sneak up on you and you feel something and you turn around and you're like, oh, like I sensed you were there. That is what that was, but more extreme, like a very intense, heightened sense of that. And at the same time, I do remember a sound, but I don't remember hearing it. If that sounds crazy, I'm sorry, but if you can imagine that, I remember this sound of like, I don't even know
like you processed it as a sound, but it wasn't.
But it wasn't. It was like I felt it, but I processed it as a sound, if that makes sense. And what's interesting is Katie and Shannon explain it in the exact same way. As we talked about it and we tried to explain that feeling, we were all in agreement about it. The only thing we weren't in agreement about was that we all heard quote unquote heard something different. So I heard more of like a breath that was like cut off every once in a while. And not just like if somebody breathes, you hear the volume like pick up and then turn down, right?
Yeah.
This was more of like a long breath, and it's as if somebody like took an audio of it and like cut out just like little parts of it and made it like paused it and then played it again. Shannon remembers it more of, she just told me the other day, like a breath that was long but higher pitched and almost angry. Ooh. And it was. So Katie remembers it a different way too, but we all are in agreement that it wasn't really a sound and it was more of a presence. And not only that, but I felt that it was there, and I knew where it was. It was behind us and up. And when it happened, it scared us more because the moment that it happened, we all looked at each other like freaked out.
Oh my God.
As if we all heard something and we were like, oh my gosh, what was that? But there wasn't a sound. So we all looked at each other terrified, and at the exact same time, after we all stared at each other for half a second, we all turned around and looked up in the exact same spot, kind of up in the trees.
Oh my God.
It's as if we like heard the wind and we were trying to look at where the wind was in the trees.
Yeah, but like that's not how wind works.
Right, and there wasn't wind because again, there isn't wind because there's like the trees are all too thick and it's just too quiet. We all looked in the same spot, and then we all looked at each other like because we all looked in the same spot too, and we all kind of had this nope moment, and we booked it back to the main trail, which was again not that far. And I remember running and thinking, I'm gonna like trip over all this lava rock and this is the end of me. It's also been said that the lava rock will crumble over itself and like people can fall and get stuck in like the lava rocks, and that's a whole other layer. We get back to the old trail, and I'm starting to run down to the new trail, but the other two kind of wait because they were like, what about the other
Yeah,
five?
the other people.
And Shannon immediately felt better when we got on the old trail. I was still kind of walking back to the new trail, but they were telling me to come back, and Shannon talked to me a little bit more about how she felt good. I did not feel good, but I did feel a lot better when Shannon told me that all of her bad vibes were gone, like, after that. And I was kind of terrified for the other five and was thinking we should stay and, like, try to call out for them. The thing is, you can't really... The trees are so thick that you can't... I don't know. I don't think
Like, they
you
wouldn't
can-
be able to
doesn't
hear
really
you.
carry.
Yeah, sound doesn't carry. There's no echo or anything. So the three of us stand there for a minute, and none of us want to talk about it, but we're all just kind of like, we need to wait. Eventually we kind of back out of that idea, and we all do start walking back to the main trail. And again, as soon as we get to the main trail, the feeling is different. Like, I feel not as cold. I feel like it's not as quiet. It just feels very different. It didn't feel as dark anymore. And we wait there until the other five get back. The other five get back, and they all looked a little disturbed, a little bit. But they could tell that we definitely were the ones that were spooked. So I just was like, it's time to go. I start walking. Somebody from that five, like, walks with me, and Shannon and Katie are walking with the rest of the group, telling them what's going on. And we just kind of are walking out of the forest, and apparently I'm telling some story because I'm trying to get my mind off of it, but a guy walked by us. I didn't even notice him, apparently, which I should have because there weren't that many people on that trail. But Shannon noticed that this guy was, like, in a nice clothes. I don't think it was a suit, but he didn't look like he should be in a forest. He didn't look like a hiker or anything like that. And Shannon kind of kept an eye on him and noticed that after he passed them, he kept looking back at them. And Shannon kind of tried to keep an eye on him. Like, she would backtrack on the trail and kind of look around the corner of the trail at him. And she said that she saw him, like, turn and run into the trail, or off the trail.
Oh no.
And it was a couple others were with her, but they all said that it was too late for them to do anything about it. I think they started running back, but they were so far away from him, and he was just already gone, and, like, you can't see where they went at that point. And they weren't, I wouldn't run off the trail ever again. And they were wondering if he was doing something specific, or if they were possibly, like, the last people to see him before he did it, which is just a whole other, like, thing. So, like, we had our spook moment, but then that moment afterwards, when we were all back on the train and Shannon was telling us about it, that was, like, a whole other thing about, like, this forest is just so awful in so many different ways that it's just it's not a fun time. It's not a thing for tourists to do. It's freaky. So we're traveling home and kind of talking about the whole thing, and some people were like, yeah, that was so spooky, like, that was crazy, I'm glad I went. Other people were like, I'm never coming back here again. And we get home, and Shannon, Katie, and I kind of go to our rooms, and the second I get to my room, I tear off my shirt and look at my back in the mirror. And
Why?
so I never said anything earlier when it happened, but when we all got that feeling of, like, kind of hearing something without hearing it and feeling that presence, I didn't want to say anything because I thought it sounded far too cliche and I was just making it up in my head, but I got, like, a chill up my back. Like, you know how you say, like, tingles up your spine?
Yeah, I've been getting them this whole time because I'm scared.
It felt like that, but it kind of felt like somebody just, like, lightly was, like, brushing their fingertips up across my spine. And in my mind, I was just like, yep, that's just what you get when you're scared. Like, that's that chill you get when you get,
No.
tingle up your spine. And I check my back, and I have the picture somewhere. I can show it to you
I'm
guys.
scared of, like, my own sensation
But
now.
I have...
Like, this is, like, what I feel. I'm scared of it now. No,
It's
I don't like
it's
it.
okay. I'm almost done. But I check my back, and I think there were 6 ovals that were going kind of up my spine and slightly to the right. They are similar to fingerprints, but they're a bit more oval shaped, and the ovals have a kind almost tips to them.
Oh.
And they're not bruises, they're not scratches, they're not burns. I think the closest thing you could call them would be like a sunburn, but they were kind of red, and they weren't like raised or anything like that. They just looked like, they almost honestly looked like birthmarks, like almost like red birthmarks, if you could. And I'm freaked out. I immediately jump in the shower and scrub my back for a while and get back out. I check the mirror and they're still there. So I go and I show Shannon and Katie, and they freak out and take a picture of it, and we tell everybody else in our group, and it was just kind of known for the rest of the summer with all the other people that we were there with, that like, you don't go to this forest because Shannon, Katie, and Josh like experienced the spirit, and it's haunting Josh now.
No.
Because
wait, when did the marks go away?
they were on for about 2 weeks, and then they faded within. They were there, and then within 2 days they were completely gone. So they faded quickly when they finally did start fading.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the story of my not wanting to go to this forest, not wanting to be any part of it, and then me being the one who is like most affected by it in the end.
Jeez. I need to like curl up in a brightly lit room and watch a cheerful episode of a TV show or something.
We have to walk back to your car and then drive home.
I'm gonna
You guys can call me.
I'm gonna
as
be
you walk
really
back.
vigilant.
We like, ghosts?
No, please don't even.
No, remember that time that we were driving and then we had to turn around and there was just
Yeah,
a
that
field
was
in
the
front of us?
worst.
That was really spooky.
Oh my
If
God.
that happened tonight, I would
No. Mm-mm.
start crying again.
Please, if you cry, I'll cry, and I can't drive while I'm crying.
It's interesting, the thought of like, it's such a debate, right? Whether or not people believe in ghosts. And I was totally on that side of ghosts aren't real. People just want to believe in them. But until you have an experience, it's like, I don't know. It just changes you. And you know that you sound kind of crazy to some people. And you know that people are skeptical, but you still like, yeah, I don't know. It changes you, man. It changes you. I hope, okay, so where would that fall on the scale?
That was like a straight up. Okay,
10.
I mean, in terms of story, like great story.
Thanks.
I've been on the edge of my seat this whole time.
I
Actual,
would probably give it a 9.
actual spooks, probably about the same as the other one, but you set the scene a lot better.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
thank you.
what, like, that's...
Immersion scale, like 12 out of 10.
Yeah,
I
Okay.
was so
All right.
immersed.
that's why I was like, that story is, like, a scary story, but part of it is, like, the storytelling. If you were just like, we felt something and it was spooky.
Here's what happened. I'd be like, okay, that was kind of scary.
Yeah.
But you, like, dragged me
It's
into
'cause
that
it was
story.
it was so real to me that it's
Yeah.
like, that's
You did a really
the only
good
way to
job.
explain it. Yeah. I mean, both stories definitely made Kaylee cry, so
When I get
whatever that
spooked,
does.
my eyes just, like, well up.
The spooks come out as tears.
I think in order for something to be a 10, something
Something-
would have had to happen. Like if those people had gone missing, that would have been off the charts.
yeah.
I don't want that to happen. I
Oh,
don't want to
man.
hear that story.
No.
That's the kind of thing where,
No.
like, I do not watch scary movies because that's the kind of stuff that happens and I can't deal
Like
with
if
it.
one of you had passed out, like the three of you felt something and then someone passed out, that would be like a 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
To this day, though, so Shannon is she knows that I get very freaked out with this sort of stuff. Like her stories, I haven't even heard the worst of her stories because they're too much for me.
Oh, no.
But to this day, I know that Shannon knows something more about that day that I don't know. Shannon
no,
and
no,
Katie.
no, no,
we
no.
need
And
her
I
on the
don't
podcast.
know.
No, absolutely not.
I don't know if maybe the 5 of them, I still think that this is true, even though Shannon has told me no. I think that to this day, the 5 of them experienced something. I don't know if it was anything, but to this day, I know that Shannon and Katie know something that I don't know. Just in those times that we were
wanna know.
separated.
Ugh, I want to curl into a ball and disappear. I just gotta, like, unwind for maybe a whole hour.
yeah, true.
I think that's what I'll have to do.
If
gotta
anybody's more interested in like learning about that forest, there's a good documentary. It's by Vice. It's on YouTube. If you just, I don't know, YouTube some of those keywords, you'll find it. And then they follow this man. He's a volunteer Japanese citizen who it's his job to go in there and follow those strings and find people. And sometimes he actually convinces people to come out of it.
back.
Yeah, like he finds people who are thinking about it. So that's kind of, I'm going to try and leave it with like a happy twist about that forest.
Thank you.
That the Japanese government is putting more, I don't think enough, but they're putting more resources and manpower in trying to combat the serious problem that they have going on over there. So, and besides that, other than that, I would very, very strongly discourage anybody who's ever thinking about going to Japan from ever going anywhere near that forest. Right next to it is Mount Fuji. I've climbed it a few times. It's a great,
Just go there
fun
and have
hike.
a good time.
That's a fun time. Yeah. There's no spirits there as far as I know.
Great. Thank you. That makes me feel genuinely a lot better.
Yeah. Okay, good. Good.
Okay.
Okay, this has been a very long podcast episode
I mean,
so far.
you guys deserve
Okay.
it. Thank you for
It's just
listening.
the Halloween special.
I'm gonna just make the P stand for puppies because I think we all deserve that.
There you go.
After that, those stories, I think, yeah, just like puppies. Just think about them. They're really cute and sweet
Even in October.
and soft. Think about puppies in
Dressed up
Halloween costumes.
like pumpkins.
Yeah, think about chubby pumpkin puppies. That's what the P
Like
stands
a
for.
pumpkin with a puppy in it.
Either a pumpkin with
That
a puppy
too.
in it or a puppy dressed as a pumpkin.
Okay.
Whichever
Puppy
you'd like.
pumpkins.
That's what the P stands for. Good night, I guess. I'm just so scared. I can't think of anything else to say. Okay, that's all. Goodbye.